What decades of playing guitar has taught me about life. This is a interesting topic, and one you're gonna surely want to tune into. Man, it's taught me perseverance. I've talked about it on my channel. My first guitar teacher, after a couple of lessons, calling my mother and saying he'll never be able to play guitar. Man, I was just a little kid, and something in me said, man, you know what? Screw that guy, and I kept going. And that's probably lesson number one is if you want to do something, man, you've got to have a singular vision and just do it. Just do it. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or what anybody else says. You have a unique voice. Everybody watching this channel, the beauty of playing guitar is that we all have our own sound. We have our own technique. A lot of us may have influences, and some of those influences may be obvious. But there is no other Eddie Van Halen out there. There is no other Stevie Ray Vaughan out there. There is no other Jimi Hendrix out there, as much as there are guys that do an incredible job of sounding like those guys, and they may have singularly focused on sounding like a particular guitarist, but they still got their own sound. And the things that I've learned playing music, learning to work with others, playing in bands, learning to work with others is very important. You could say that the garage band is the ultimate startup. What is a startup? Well, these days, a business is essentially a startup. And if you're going to start a business, you're going to put together a team. And, like putting together Apple computers, it was done in a garage. And, 3 or 4 guys got together and they had a plan, and they built the first unit, and they placed an ad and all of that. A garage band or a career in music as a solo artist, it is the ultimate startup. And, with a band, you're going to need a team. You're going to need players. You're going to need to learn to work with players. You're going to have to be able to discern who is going to be able to make it on your journey and who's not. You're going to have to learn the art of compromise, because not everybody is going to be at the same level in a band, and might have to pull some people along, and some people might be pulling you along. But that in and of itself, those two things, if that were all I learned being a guitarist for decades, that would be plenty. But man, the art of promotion, learning how to sell yourself, that is another huge lesson that I've learned. And, a lot of that skill, I learned kind of early doing phone sales jobs out in Hollywood. But man, you know what? I wasn't thinking when I got in the band and was handing out flyers that I'm selling, or I'm in phone sales, or it's a pitch. But I quickly learned, from watching guys like David Lee Roth, who were masters at self-promotion, masters at selling the band Van Halen to the public. The guy was a genius. And, if any of you younger guys out there want to know how to market your band and how to be confident and how to sell yourself, watch old interview footage with David Lee Roth in his prime. He was the ultimate salesman for the ultimate showman. He was both. And showmanship, that performance, these are things that I've learned as decades as a musician, and being able to entertain a crowd. Sometimes it takes more than just playing the songs. Sometimes you have to perform the songs. You have to know when to pause. You have to know when to switch it up, change directions, do something different. Your perception as a musician has got to be, heightened to a fine point. Your perception and being able to judge a crowd is the same way, when you're selling your band, walking up to somebody and knowing whether they're going to be perceptive right out of the gate. And so these are all things that you learn, that I have learned as a guitarist, decades playing music. And, you also have to know when to call it quits. When is it time to pull up the tent and go do something else? You can play in the same band your entire life, and if you're the Rolling Stones, well, you hit the jackpot, and there's your career, right? But for most of us, man, we're going to go through a lot of different bands. We're going to be in a lot of different situations. We're going to work with a lot of different teams, and we may never hit that golden ring of having that platinum album or gold album or whatever, but man, it's life is the journey, and making it is sort of a myth. And that's another lesson that I've learned. All these years, all the shows that I've played, all the different bands, and I've played in situations that people might think are embarrassing or beneath them. But I've never thought that playing guitar, playing music, getting paid for it is below me, and it didn't matter what the gig was to me. I early on, when I was a little kid, I saw my guitar teacher playing in a Holiday Inn or something lounge, and I thought, man, that's what I want to do. I didn't have aspirations of being on the giant stage. I mean, that would have been great. But, ultimately, man, I knew that playing guitar was the goal. And as long as I was doing that, I was going to be happy. And, yes, there have been extreme ups and downs. And, man, I've learned to dust myself off, pull myself together. I've learned to overcome things that I was doing that weren't good for me, to improve myself. Man, it's really taught me everything. It's why I'm able to do this channel, unscripted talk. Every now and then I'll write down notes and I'll have things that I want to talk about or talking points. But man, this video, there is no script. I am literally just speaking from the heart. And I think that's why people connect to this channel. But the only reason I'm able to do that is because I've had decades playing music for a living. Now, you're going to learn a lot about people when you're in this business. And it could be learning from the people that you meet along the way, learning who you can trust, who you can't trust. You're going to learn a lot about relationships because, frankly, if you've got an up and down career as a musician, you're probably going to be in quite a few relationships. And until you find somebody that you can really trust and really will be there, it's fine when you're riding the top. You're going to have a lot of people around you and a lot of people there for the good times. And you're going to find that when you hit bottom, when things fall apart, when gigs end, when the screams of the crowd are no more, you're going to find a lot of those people dissipate. And this is the same for companies that work with you. Look, when I was out on the road, I was getting free strings. I was getting free picks. I was able to get half price on whatever, effect pedals I needed to use and all that. And, I got off the road and said, hey, would it be possible to get some strings? Yes, you can get some strings, but you're going to have to pay for them. So, you learn, man, you learn that, in some ways, success and fame is an illusion. Once those things are gone, you know, the free ride is over. You're not going to get free strings just for being you. You're getting those things because you're in a position where you can promote them, and you're in an elevated position. And the reality is this, man. I wasn't, really promoting the brands of strings that I was getting. I probably should have, but I have more ability now to promote a string company or any company now than I ever had when I was out on the road, because I'm doing it myself. I'm DIY. And so that's a valuable lesson. When I was out on the road and I was on big stages playing for thousands of people a night, I had companies and I had people that would build guitars for me and, here, we want you to play this on stage. And yeah, for the most part, if it was something that I could use, I would do that. And, they were giving me free guitars and all that. And man, some of it was some really good stuff. Other stuff, not as much. But the reality is, now that I'm doing this channel and I'm, successful to a small degree, I'm still building the channel. I'm starting to get some companies reach out and send me some guitars and send me some gear. And it's a great thing, but man, now I know that I did it myself. Now I know that they're sending it because of me. They're not sending it because I'm on stage with a certain artist, playing a certain amount of shows with a certain fan base every night. They're playing it because they know that I am doing the work, that I am promoting it. So, man, that's a big, valuable lesson right there, man. When and the same thing goes for relationships, man. When the gig ends and the money's tight, and all of a sudden you're spit back at home, and you're laying in your bed and all that, man. The relationships can all go south, and man, that's a big lesson to know, man. It wasn't all real. They weren't really there for you. And that can be a tough lesson to learn. But man, I could probably talk on this subject for hours, because the more I think about all the things I've done, and look, playing music and living in a couple of different music locales, Los Angeles with the Sunset Strip scene, totally different world than Nashville. As much as sometimes I would try to make Nashville like my time in Los Angeles, and in the early days I did. When I finally got in a band here when I was in Nashville, and the after party was bubbling with exuberance, and there were tons of people partying with us after show. That's when I thought, oh, I've turned this little scene into a little mini LA, and but it's not the same. Los Angeles and Nashville were two entirely different places with two entirely different music scenes, and navigating both of those was incredibly challenging. In some ways, LA was easier because I was younger, so I had talent, and was able to make a phone call and get into a Sunset Strip band pretty easily. It seemed like the cards or the fate was on my side. But Nashville was a lot more longer road, man. I knew I had a lot of friends that had a lot quicker ascent into the touring world than I did. I was playing clubs for years. I was playing private parties. I was playing weddings. I was playing whatever I could to make money. And, I kept my overhead low. I would live places that most people would not want to live in because I knew at any moment, man, you can get a phone call and go, the gig Saturday is canceled. I can remember one Christmas, and the economy is a huge factor to deal with. If you're going to be a musician, if you're going to be a guitar player, you want a thriving economy because ultimately what you're doing, it's not essential. Yeah, people love music and people love to be entertained, but the reality is, man, it's not necessary. And if people have to choose whether to eat that week or go see a band or pay a band to play their event, they're going to choose to eat. And I can remember one year we used to play a lot of Christmas parties, and that would always make December like really good because we would play 4 or 5 Christmas parties. They would pay well and basically carry me enough money that I could get through January and February till things started to pick up again, because Nashville has a slow season. It is not great weather all year round. So you'd have to make enough money in December to pay your rent for January and February as well. So, learning to navigate that, knowing that the economy is important, man. It's important to survive. I can remember playing one Christmas party. It was it was for a big Vanderbilt Christmas, for the doctors and all this stuff. And they said, man, you don't know. They came up to us on a break and said, you guys don't know how close this came to being canceled. And I was like, whew. And that was a year where the economy was not great. It was really starting to tank. And man, I was just sitting there going, thank God this didn't cancel, because, I've got to get through the next couple of months. Learning all of these things, it's been an extreme challenge. But man, I have a wealth of knowledge just outside the playing guitar thing, man. It seems like all the things that I learned playing music all of these years, I've learned more about people. I've learned more about situations. I've learned more about navigating life than I've ever learned about playing guitar. My knowledge of playing guitar is pretty much shaped, from when I started playing to when I graduated GIT. Yes, I've learned other things along the way, but man, most of the stuff that I use in my day-to-day playing, in my garden variety guitar style, is basically stuff that I learned, along the way. And the rest of the time, once I started playing in bands and started playing, music, I would learn stuff playing, songs, or learning songs, or, preparing for a gig. But most of what I learned on guitar was learned in those early years, and it carried me all through life. And most of the lessons that I learned the rest of the way were all about navigating life and, trying to survive. Survival skills. And I've said this before. Yeah, musicians, man, we know how to survive on very little. And, I'm not afraid of being poor. I'm not afraid of being broke. I know how to navigate that. I know how to make a meal that will last, 3 or 4 days for $5 or $6. I mean, that's something that I had to learn how to do at an early age. And like I said, man, I could talk more and more on this subject, but I'm going to wrap it up for today. Let me know in the comments, what have you learned playing music, playing guitar? What have you learned about life through your journey as a musician? I'd love to hear your answers. And man, thank you so much for watching.